Jay Price, you're the sound designer for Nat Geo's Welcome to Earth, which follows Will Smith as he travels around the world to experience extreme sights and sounds. The first episode, The Silent Roar, is all about sound. So did you approach that episode differently than you would any other episode out in nature?
No, I mean, the whole aspiration for the show was to kind of open up the audience's senses to the wonders of the world, and in our case that was opening their ears to it. And for many sense, the first episode, we were the approach was in the same way how we approached the first episode would carry on throughout the whole series. So the wonder of how we approach it and how we sound is to carry all the way through the series, which is a kind of a celebration of authentic sounds in nature, but at the same point, not to be limited by that either. So although we were kind of presented with this incredible array of different sounds and we still had the freedom to play with sound design within that to kind of help tell the story.
And that episode finds, grandeur in everything from the roaring volcano to the ash against, a windshield. Did it give you a newfound appreciation of kind of how much wonder there is just everywhere if you're paying attention?
I think that's what the show set out, and I think it does it really well. And throughout the whole series, and certainly for this episode, it really focuses on going to locations with the purpose of discovering and exploring sound, which as a sound editor, sound designer, was just a really exciting premise to go into it. They go into the volcano. Yes, you've got the explosions visually, but they were going there to actually record the sound. And the whole point that the loudest sound that's ever been recorded is a volcano. So they're going down with recorders and recording things in there. And to be given this palette of sounds to play with, it was just incredible.
And how do you balance those, a lot of those really intense, powerful sounds with, the speech, the conversation between Smith and who, the experts he has on?
I think Sam, who mixed it, did a fantastic job with that. So much of the stuff that we delivered is so rich sonically. I think a lot of that came in at the mix, to kind of balance that. But the way that the show does it, you have the extreme noise, but also explores silence. So the whole point, they go into the Dolomites and they go all the way down on the hunt for silence. So I think the idea is to we balance that out throughout the whole show, really.
And what would you say is some of the most awe-inspiring sounds that you've captured so far on the show?
For me, one of the most exciting kind of sounds was the sound of the sperm whales. I mean, the sound that they make, I think it's about 233 decibels or something astonishing, which is the loudest animal in the whole world. And what they managed to record is with the hydrophones. But what's actually kind of picked up these kind of clicks and this incredible, because that's obviously the language that they use. And so that was really interesting to get those. And also the ice skating. I think that's such an obscure sound that people aren't familiar with. They kind of pew, they sound like almost like sci-fi guns. I think that's a really interesting sound, which most people aren't familiar with.
And you mentioned the whales, and just sound in general underwater is so different than the way sound travels through air. Is it a different experience or considerations to to edit the sound from underwater?
I think yes and no. I mean, what the series was setting out was to kind of a celebration of all these sounds. But what kind of our job as sound design, my job as sound designer, was to also deliver the authentic sound, but to deliver the experience of the people in these situations. So, for example, going back to the whales, what we recorded was just clicks, because hydrophones, you don't get the kind of rich quality that you would do outside of water. So part of what I had to create is how it felt. I mean, so much of this, that sort of volume of sound affects your body. You feel it moving through. So designing sounds that was kind of authentic to that experience, as opposed to just replicating what was recorded on the day. It's kind of a big part of the job, really. And the really exciting part to kind of experiment and play with that.
You've done sound work for both scripted and unscripted programs. Are the processes and techniques similar, or is it quite different?
I think ultimately it's all about storytelling, no matter kind of the medium, if that's kind of film, drama, Nat Geo style shows. It's all about telling the story. And for me, it's whatever we can use, using sound in a way that helps tell that story, instead of just in a literal. I mean, obviously dialogue is important, but using sound more creatively. I think that's uniform across all platforms, really.
And Daniel Pemberton's score is also incredibly impactful on the show. Did you want to develop a similar kind of musicality from your sound work?
I think a lot of what we did was kind of we had the music when I was doing the sound design, so it allowed me to kind of work in and around that, really. So we're not kind of clashing in the same frequencies, and giving it space where it needs space. So that was kind of my kind of coming into this, was to obviously excite that and complement the music, really.
What would you say was the biggest challenge that you undertook for the show?
I think one of the biggest challenges is kind of recreating when we get to the end, and Will's kind of, he's suddenly very aware and focusing in into the different things that we hear, and just building these montages of different sounds throughout the show. I think that was a really fun bit and the most challenging bit to get that right. And also what I did a lot of was reusing different sounds in different parts. I mean, when they get all the way down to the Dolomites, they leave a recorder and go away. And what they recorded is these sounds, they call them earth tides. So it's the sound of, it's so quiet that you can pick up the sound of the moon pulling against the earth, which is this low rumble. And it goes on to say these earth tides, even New York, it rises and falls by about 14 inches every day. So if you were able to strip back all those sounds, you would be left with this earth tide rumble. So I think they were the most challenging scenes to kind of, and the most fun to play with.
And someone who works with sound, I imagine you've heard a lot. And you mentioned the whales and also the earth tides. Were there any other sounds that were completely new to you that you've never heard before?
What was new is that I've never seen sound before. And this is what this show does. When they go to Mexico, they've got this crazy festival where they kind of tie explosions to the end of a mallet, and they hit the floor, and they play in slow-mo, and you physically see the ripples of sound. And that was, for me, that was the first. I've never seen sound before.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your work on Welcome to Earth, and thank you so much for discussing with me today.
Thank you very much. Cheers.